Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. We will continue back our lesson for EBT 451 Professional Engineer. And for today's lessons, we will learn about engineers in the era of globalization. Core issues and challenges in engineering ethics. What is to be expected by engineers in Malaysia and the worldwide? Is it the same or not? Okay, first of all, is the importance of honesty in the engineering. Regarding you are working in Malaysia or you working in somewhere else, in Europe or in India or in China, honesty in the engineering is very important. The various forms of dishonesty and how a conflict of interest can compromise an engineer's judgment. Nevertheless, where you are working, honesty is very important and it can compromise an engineer's judgment if the engineer's practice dishonesty. Issue of risk in engineering, such as how risk should be defined and how much risk is accepted, okay, or acceptable, okay, is important. Okay, and then the engineer manager conflicts within the context of a company or organization, the tensions that can result from the engineer manager relationship and how this conflict may be resolved. Some impediments to responsible actions to be considered. To explore and apply these challenges in the context of contemporary issues. The impact on society and country, government policy, law enforcement, public behavior, social maturity, political parties, and etc. Okay, this is what we call as globalization. Okay, what is expected to be faced by the engineers in Malaysia is the same, whereas engineers need to be faced over or out of Malaysia. Okay, therefore the globalization are very important to ensure, okay, the performance of the engineers whereas they work, okay, in Malaysia or outside Malaysia is still the same, and what is to be expected is still the same. Globalization is a term that can be used to describe the increasing trends toward internationally integrated market and global interconnectedness, making national boundary less important in terms of political, cultural, technological, financial, environment, and national security issues. Effect of the globalization. The result of globalization are changing the way we live our life, and on a personal basis, they are changing the institutions which we collectively use to give form and predictability to our economic, social, and political relationship. This is the challenges of globalization. First is to defining the global engineering ethics. Is it the same if the engineer works in one part of the country and if the engineer move or migrate to the other country? Is the engineering ethic will be the same? Developing procedures for the international license of engineering, developing international codes and standard of practice, international accreditation and recognition of engineering programs. This is important to ensure that wherever the engineer is being produced, okay, they will follow a set of rules and have the set of code of conduct is still the same. Okay, what will be expected by globalization changes? Okay, first, in terms of the engineer itself, okay, the projects, the product, and the bids will be definitely different. But however, okay, in terms of the professional, the ethics to conduct the product or the project or the bids, the standard and the professionalism is still the same. Okay, meanwhile, for the educator, okay, in terms of the content of what they are teaching, the pedagogies and the methods are still the same. They need to produce an engineer, okay, to have a set of ethics and standard and professionalism, whereas it could be practiced worldwide or globalized. Okay, this is the globalization challenges. Okay, and then what is very important when an engineer works, okay, and it's been defined as internationally. First, they need to consider about the awareness. Awareness is regarding the technical and the societal. Okay, so when they design or produce an engineering product, okay, they need to consider the society despite the technicality. Okay, and then the sensitivity is regarding when the technical and the cultural. Okay, so if they produce a product in a certain country or a certain community, so they need to understand what is the cultural needs of the exact community. And then the tolerance, okay, are required when they are facing or working and need to be considered regarding the society and the culture in which they perform their project or work. Okay, the globally competent engineers, first they are required to have a technically competence, ethically sensitive, and socially aware. Okay, this will produce a good set of engineers. Okay, the skills needed for a globally competent engineer. First is an ability to function on multidisciplinary teams. Okay, means they can work inside a team well without any problems. And then this cannot affect their works. An understanding on professional and ethical responsibility, an ability to communicate effectively. Okay, okay. This is very important for engineer to master the second language in Malaysia, which is the English language. So they can communicate effectively if they work outside of Malaysia. The broad education necessary to understand the impact of engineering solution in a global, economic, environmental, and societal context. A recognition of the needs and the ability to engage in lifelong learning, a knowledge on contemporary issues. Global engineer common sense concept is first the ethical codes are supposedly to apply globally. Okay, what we learned previously regarding the SEC or the code of conduct of engineers, okay, it needed to be applied globally, not only in Malaysia. Changing the locality does not release the engineer from professional responsibility, including the environment protection and resource prevention. Okay, let's say if you work in Malaysia and then you apply this code of engineers where you are working in. Okay, later you move into another country. Okay, this means that what you are learned and the code of conduct of being an engineer is still needed to be followed. Okay, despite you are not working in Malaysia. That's why the ethical codes of engineer supposedly to be applied globally. Once value does not apply to all cultures. Okay, respect for the cultural norms and laws and avoiding moral judgment. Okay, and then regarding the values, okay, sometimes in different country or different community, okay, they have a different set of cultures. Okay, so as an engineer, you are required to respect the cultural norms and the law where you are working in, and you need to avoid moral judgment. Engineers also need to preserve and promote human health and welfare. Okay, nevertheless, where you are working, the most important as being an engineer is to preserve and promote the human health and welfare. Everything you are done or carry out inside the design, okay, the first priority is to determine the safety of the social. Practice of the host country should be always chosen when practice compete. Okay, so okay, maybe the practice of a country is different from where you are previously working with. Okay, therefore, first of all, you are required to understand what is the practice that have been carried out inside the host country, and then you are required to follow. Ethical and legal liability should be global. Okay, this is very important to be an engineer. Okay, and then how to upgrade the engineering ethics and professionalism. Okay, the most important is inside the training. Okay, to get a good understanding of the engineering ethics and professionalism, it could be gather through a proper training and education that focus on upgrading ethics and professionalism in the engineering. Okay, and then the engineer itself have to have a global thinking and understanding requires training. Okay, next is the capitalization on globalization, which we have the small steps current taken in the direction of understanding the engineering ethics and professionalism. Okay, last is regarding the CPD, is the continuous professional development. Okay, this is required for every engineer to continue their lifelong learning. Okay, because the technology and what been learned previously is always changing. Okay, throughout the time. Okay, from the continuous professional development or training or learning, engineer can enhance their knowledge based on the current situation. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.